Our next macro, we're going to talk about proteins. Proteins are the second most abundant substance in our body, so they're right behind water. Proteins are made of monomers called amino acids. There's 20 different amino acids. We'll talk more about the structure of amino acids and the making of proteins when we get to our genetics unit. But basically, amino acids look like this. Proteins can be thousands of amino acids in length. And what's significant about that is the structure of a protein is going to determine its function. And there are there's four basic structures of proteins that will determine their function. And you can see here basically what an amino acid looks like. Okay, let's get into some of these important functions. Proteins are basically the workhorses here. They're the workhorse macro. They are structural components of our bodies. So if I'm talking about us, I could be talking about our fingernails, I could be talking about our hair, and if I'm talking about other animals, I could be talking about horns or hooves made of the same type of protein. Proteins are involved in transportation of materials, and there's a couple of different ways that we could be talking about transportation. We could be talking about our cell membrane, so going back to the same picture I used before of our cell membrane. If you look at this blue protein here, this is called a protein channel or transport protein. So some molecules, again, it's based on its polarity, so go back to that word again, or it could be a size issue. Some molecules need a little help getting from one side of a cell to the other side, and they will go through a protein. Now, the other means of transportation, we could be talking about hemoglobin. So you see hemoglobin here, which is a part of your red blood cells. You've seen these red blood cells before. So the hemoglobin has a point of attachment for oxygen and a point of attachment for carbon dioxide. So it transports carbon dioxide and oxygen at the same time. So oxygen is picked up in the lungs and carbon dioxide is deposited in the lungs. Now, something that's interesting and a bit scary about the way hemoglobin works is that this part of the hemoglobin molecule that will bind to oxygen will actually bind to another molecule if it's available. And that other molecule is called CO. What do you think that is? CO, just CO. We know that carbon dioxide is CO2, so carbon and one oxygen would be carbon monoxide. So what's scary about that is if there is carbon monoxide around us in our surroundings in our environment, then our hemoglobin will bind to it and deliver it to our cells instead of oxygen. And you've heard about carbon monoxide before. You can't smell it, you can't see it. You have to have a carbon monoxide detector to detect that. So you have to be very careful about. So it can come from emissions from old or faulty heating systems, from cars. So it's just one of those things that we have to be careful of. Your immune system. Uh, when we think about our immune system, we think about staying healthy. And you can see this person right here is getting a horrible shot. It looks awful, it looks painful. But when you think about your immune system, your immunity, you might think about what doctors give you if you're sick, and they give you antibiotics. Well, what we have in our body, these proteins that are part of our immune system to keep us healthy, to help us fight off any infection from bacteria, virus, anything, they're called antibodies. And the reason why we might get a vaccination like this, and we know vaccines, that's kind of a big hot topic these days. But if we would get a vaccination, it's to allow our bodies to have seen a weakened to dead version of a foreign invader, an antigen, anything that causes your body to have an immune response. But by having that vaccine and by giving our body a little look-see at potential danger, our body can get the antibodies ready to go and remember what that potential danger looks like and be ready just in case. Now, this is a big one we're going to focus on in this unit is regulation of cell functions and your digestive system. So we're talking about enzymes here in your digestive system, and they allow chemical reactions to occur faster. So we will talk about enzymes by themselves, but they are catalysts. They cause chemical reactions to speed up, they occur faster, and it's simply because the enzyme provides a place for the chemical reaction to occur. So we will focus a little bit on your digestive system as we can see it here. So there are enzymes. These proteins are here in your mouth and your saliva. They're also in your stomach and a little bit there in your small intestine. And then something else to mention when it comes to regulation of cell function in some proteins, you may have heard of serotonin and melatonin. You may have heard of your circadian rhythm, and pretty much for most of us, our circadian rhythm has just been destroyed since March. But if you look at this little illustration here of your sleep wake cycle, so we have this is our wake, deep sleep, and then our REM, our deep dreaming sleep. And we see here that from looks maybe about 8-ish till midnight. That's about the time that we're going to be awake. And then the gray is we're really asleep, and then the red we're dreaming. And as you can see, these periods of deep sleep get smaller, and the period of the dreaming gets bigger. And what tends to happen to us is we might be on a really good schedule during the week, and then we wreak havoc on this cycle on the weekends. Um, and then I'll just give myself an example is that I'm getting up at 6:30 now to get ready for school, which is better than 5:30. That's what I got up last year, but it was 6:30, so I'll take 6:30. That works for me. That's the ticket. So I'll get up at 6:30. Um, on the weekend, do you think I'm going to get up at 6:30? No, I am not. So let's say that I've forgotten to turn my alarm clock off. It happens. It does happen. So I'm awake, 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 and then I am awake, awake, and awake, and who knows? It may be 3 a.m. It just depends on what I'm watching on TV. And then I go to sleep. And now all of this gray and red business, my deep sleep and my dreaming are all messed up. So I forgot my alarm clock's still on and it's getting ready to go off, or and it does go off. And instead of me being almost waking up, I'm still in deep sleep. And you know what it's like. You're startled awake and then you kind of feel it for the rest of your day. You're off for the rest of the day. And that's just because we've kind of messed these up. So the serotonin levels is kind of, let's say, when the sun's out, it's like, hey, get up, be happy, be awake. And then melatonin at night. And some people take melatonin supplements. They're like, hey, the sun's gone down. I think it's time for you to shut your eyes and have a nice rest. But we tend to mess this thing up all the time, and especially since quarantine, it's like, what is a bedtime? I think I saw on a commercial the other day, like bedtime. What is a bedtime? It's like, who knows anymore? Not us. But this is something that we can do. We can regulate this, but we have to be consistent. Consistency. Okay, and last thing here, well, next to last thing, are some examples. So when we're talking about structure of our body, we're talking about our hair, our fingernails, our horns, our hooves, but we really don't have horns or hooves. And if you do, we won't make fun of you. Transport, that's our hemoglobin or the transport proteins, your cell membrane. Your immune system, we're talking about those antibodies. Now, some of our antibodies are boots on the ground. They're going to go out there, they're going to destroy something. And then some of them are kind of like the brains behind the operation. They remember. And then the big thing for regulation of enzyme, regulation of cells is we're going to talk about enzymes. But I did throw this little picture in there. I saw a product very similar to this at Sam's Club a few years ago. I didn't buy it. And ever since then, I've been kicking myself. I should have bought it. And this is basically a little lamp that you can buy so that you can shine simulated sunlight on yourself so that you can help to regulate your sleep wake cycle, your circadian rhythm, and you can be happier. And then lastly, wanted to mention something about proteins and where we're going to get them from our food. essential and non-essential amino acids. And one thing I wanted to mention here about the essential amino acids, these are going to come from animals or animal products. I hate to say it. So we can either eat that little chicken there, or we can eat the egg, eat that fish or that big globby piece of liver there, or we could eat the strawberry cow or drink the strawberry cow's milk.